Benton 19th, 2024. And thank you everyone for attending. It's appreciated. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jenny, can you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Consent agenda. Any discussions?
I'd like to remove item G, ordinance 1061, and put it on the action items.
Okay,
Any other changes?
No other amended, no motion to approve as amended.
Second,
all in favor?
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
read aye.
Valencia,
Alcazar, aye.
Consent agenda passes. We have a proclamation to put in place honoring, I believe it's in the agenda, honoring,
That's
we
for the following. We're gonna do that on the following
oh,
agenda.
okay. Good report. Proclamations and acknowledgements. You said that was,
We're doing it
okay.
next month.
Okay, okay. Just FYI then,
Mhm.
okay. We have any visitors who would like to make comments?
on non-agenda items, non-agenda items?
I don't.
Okay.
It's an agenda item, okay. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll continue on to reports. This is staff reports, first report from the planner.
Before we get going too far, Mr. Mayor, or excuse me, your honorable mayor, do we need to do a roll call?
That'd be a great idea, thank you.
Okay.
And we also need to add the sheriff's report.
What?
We also need to add the sheriff's report.
Okay. Okay,
Councilman Sandretto,
Here,
Councilwoman Wadsworth. Here. Councilman Reed.
Here,
Councilwoman Alcazar. Here. And I don't have my list in front of me. Valencia.
Valencia.
Councilman
Valencia.
Valencia.
Here.
awesome, okay. Let's go with staff reports from the planner.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I have our planners report, and this was written March 13th. The number one item there is we continue to review single family homes in River North, which are Hayden Homes subdivision. We've approved, I believe, 10 for new building permits for review. Site plans have been reviewed, and I believe we're going to have another 13, so that's filling up fast. The second item, on February 22nd of this year, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for Olson Brothers subdivision preliminary plat. The commission made recommendation for council approval. Again, just a way of background for this subdivision. For the preliminary plat, the information reviewed included plans for the subdivision layout, SEPA checklist, a geotechnical report, traffic study, and archaeology study. We did receive a couple of comments from Department of Ecology, and those were addressed, and they were discussed at the Planning Commission public hearing. 40-acre parcel, again, there's a 40-acre parcel to be subdivided into 209 residential lots. The property is located west of Kybee Market and Highland Road. Property is owned R3 high density residential. And this was again recommended by Planning Commission to the council for approval. The next item on the list here is again on February 22nd, 2024. Planning Commission held a public hearing for CMSC Properties. This was a conditional use application request to construct and operate a drive-through eating and drinking establishment. And this property is located to.
You're always gonna do that, aren't you?
Yes, I am, because I got turned around last time. West of the Shell gas station. The applicant is proposing to construct a drive-through coffee retail establishment on 0.42 acres site. The property is zoned C1 commercial and is designated commercial in the comprehensive plan. Again, this item is on the agenda for tonight. Projects received recently, we have a request for a zone change at 306. That's wrong.
That was my next question.
That is wrong. I'm sorry, that should be 13th Street. This is a change from the existing ag suburban zone to an R2 medium density zone. Property is approximately 1.4 acres in size, and we are currently reviewing this request. In future steps, public hearing will be scheduled for both the Planning Commission and Council. On Horn Drive, we received an application for conditional use request to construct a preschool and playground for childcare services. This is at the Javier Church. They're also proposing a parcel consolidation. The facility is currently on 2 parcels and they want to have a lot line consolidation there. The property is zoned R2 medium density zoning. Parcels to be combined are 180,000 square feet in size. Staff is currently reviewing this request, and a public hearing will be scheduled for the Planning Commission probably next month. 1304 Edith Avenue is a request to locate a manufactured home. And this is this is a new request for a new manufactured home with a 412 pitch roof. So it requires a conditional use. And we are currently reviewing it and we'll schedule a public hearing at a later date.
What was the address of this rezone again?
The rezoned. That is. Judy, do you
Is that-
remember that?
Is it the fire district owner?
No.
Oh,
I'm not sure which rezone.
then I'm not
Okay, it's,
sure which one it was.
it's currently zoned ag suburban, so it has to be, I believe, off of 13th Street. It's north end of town.
North end of town?
Yeah,
North?
the very north. It's about one of the last lots before you leave.
So up by Hercules, not Hercules, Grace, thank you.
Yeah,
Right, that's
on the
correct.
west side of 13.
13th.
Before or after OIE,
This would be one of the last lots in the city,
going out north or west?
north,
North.
and it sits on the east side of the road. R2 is across the street from this property. It was recently purchased. It's been up for sale for a while. I apologize for having the wrong address on there.
Extremely slow.
Well, I have, but I'm not sure if it's the right one, because this is saying it's Grace. Between Hazel and Grace, like in triangular,
No,
is a different one, okay.
no, this is a long lot which runs west to east. It's a long rectangle parcel.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it, does it just say 13th Street? Okay,
Yes, 13th.
all right,
That's a different acreage.
Yeah, the
There's-
property size is correct. And the zoning is correct. It's just the address is
Okay.
wrong.
And there's no buildings on it.
I believe there might be an old house there.
Okay.
Good. Everybody good?
No, it's over here. It's,
You're referring to Neptune by the water tower,
no, it's further
further north?
right. I believe there's one other lot just north of it. Before you go outside the city limits.
Right here,
Mhm,
on the side.
right.
Okay, here's 13. 13, oops.
Goes out of town.
13th ends at Saturn,
Right. and oops.
so north of there.
Oh,
Oh, right.
I'm wrong, 13th.
This is River North.
No, it's up and over.
There's our edge of town, there's Pearl Creek.
He goes six, but I guess not.
Okay.
He goes six. I just don't have them.
Well, just get us a corrected address
Sure.
so we know what you're doing.
Right.
And you can email that to us.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, George. Engineering report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Provide a brief update on the engineering report. We'll go over every line, but just some highlights. Under task order number 1, general engineering, pedestrian crossings, an update on that from the date that the report was submitted as we have received approval on that project. So we'll be scheduling the surveyor to start their portion and then get these crossings installed. And the next one down Riverfront Park Trail, we have submitted a revised prospectus and it's been reviewed initially and everything looks good. So it's just waiting final approval on that. Railroad Bridge NEPA task order number 4. We have met with HUD regarding the NEPA report and we'll be submitting that via their online portal. Tribal letters have been submitted with a 30-day response time. And the SEPA report has been submitted on that as well. Task order number 6, water and sewer system generators. The civil design is scheduled to be complete this Friday, the 22nd. We have finalized the generator specifications. I know that says pending there, but since then that's been finalized and we plan to get that out for bid within the next few weeks. Task order number 7, athletic facilities grant, that was submitted on the 13th. App has been received by RCO and reported as complete. So it's just under their review and they'll let us know if it's one of the approved projects. TIB chip seal project, task order number 8. Benton County is currently bidding that out and it closes March 28th. Once that bid is complete and the contractors are evaluated and awarded, then that work will be scheduled. Task order number 9, Jacobs Road Utilities. We've had some conversations with city administrative staff regarding this project. This is extending utilities, water and sewer, if you recall, over at the I-82 sub area. And there's been some conversation with DNR, and it looks like that development is probably not going to happen in the near future. So with that, we're thinking it would be more feasible to change that project and actually do an upgrade to lift station 3. I know maintenance has had to work on that regularly because of the increase there, and there's some pump issues and wipes getting clogged in there. So we'd like to, with your approval, change the task order for that one, do a revision, which we can submit that in next council meeting, and change the scope from the Jacobs Road Utilities to upgrades to lift station 3. Any questions or comments on that? It's ARPA funding, so there's no issue going back to our funding source and requesting approval is something that we can do because it still upgrades our water or sewer system infrastructure. Questions, comments?
Well, I guess here's my comment. I get the idea, but the long-term effect is that, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, lift station 3 is functioning appropriately currently. And we may not have the funding to do an extension of that sewer system on that side of the river in the future. That was why we designated that money for that project at the time we did.
Mhm.
Can I interject there real quick? So.
Better.
Evening, everyone. With the DNR property, it looks like from what we understand from meetings with Lynn, that they're requesting the city almost to do a plat of the property so they can sell their property. So we don't see where there's a financial gain for the city. We see a bunch of expenditures. And at the point of where they go out and sell the property, we think, 300 feet of water and sewer is not an exorbitant cost to a developer when they're putting in probably, I guess, around 2-3 miles of utilities in the properties. We have talked to Public Works, and they have to go pull the pump once or twice a week, just because there's so many rags getting caught up, and actually it's mainly baby wipes. They get thrown down the sewer. And these are older pumps, from several years ago, different style, and they don't do as well with clogging issues as flight pumps that we're going to be switching to. That's what we've met with City of Richland and gone over their lift stations. And the flight pumps, if they get clogged up, they actually have where it reverses, tries to unclog it and then restart. And they have fewer issues with those pumps. And I know Wade has said this is a high need for them at this point.
The other side of the south of 82, last week we learned that there are two culturally, there are two areas that are culturally important, one of which is culturally significant, which impacts doing a survey on the site for cultural survey. The other issue that has cropped up is the game department has taken a push on retention of sagebrush ground. George reached out to DNR for me for a clarification if the sagebrush ground over there would be a factor considering development. DNR didn't say no, but they only said it should not be a factor in developing that. So there's no yes or no on that yet. We have to get a cultural survey done over there. We're looking for quotes to see if we even want to proceed with that or put the burden back on DNR. So we're out of ways, but significant ways to figure out what we're going to do with that ground.
My concern would be failure to move forward on that side of the freeway is going to be detrimental to the growth of our city.
It's correct. That is
And
correct.
anytime we have the opportunity to move forward in that area, we need to.
Yeah.
I get that the lift station's a thing, but we have dumped
A lot of money.
a ton of money into sewer enhancements and repairs over the last 8 years, 6 years. To the tune of probably $1 million+ dollars. And that's good that we're keeping our infrastructure up. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at some point, we gotta look at the expansion piece. Failure to develop the I-82 corridor will be detrimental to Benton City in the long term. And that's my opinion on it. I'm not in favor of changing that funding, but I'll leave it up to the rest of the council.
And I guess we don't have to have an answer tonight. If, one thing we could do is put more of a formal presentation for you guys, so you can see some of the things that the mayor's found out and bring it forward. And then see what you guys want to do. I mean, either way, whatever you.
I'm always open to listen.
Yeah.
I might not hear, but
I'd be interested in see what you guys could present.
Okay.
But a little bit better understanding.
Okay, we'll do that then.
If I could take moment to interrupt, I don't know if our AV is the problem, but our folks online are having a hard time hearing us. So if we speak into the mic or.
Okay.
Can everybody online hear us? Nod heads.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I can hear you fine.
Anything else?
Few more highlights.
Okay,
Where was I? So that was the Jacobs Road Utilities. Force main extension, update on that. Our boundary line adjustment is complete. The civil design, is complete, and we'll be posting that bid, by the end of this week as well. So hopefully moving forward on that one fairly soon. And finally, the, last one was task order 19 grant assistance. And we've got an unfinished business regarding the splash pad. I do have some additional information from our last council meeting regarding the cost on the splash pad versus the grant. I'll be presenting that when we get to unfinished business. But that's everything I have for engineering report. Questions, comments? Okay,
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
We have a sheriff's report.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Commander Clerk, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. First, I want to apologize. Last month, we did not make it here. Lieutenant Erickson was gonna present last month, and he got called away to a priority call, so that is why we were not here. But I'll keep this pretty short and sweet. For the month of February, we had 189 calls for service, and for those 189 calls, 18 of them ended up being case offenses. There was no major incidents during that time period here. We did write 15 infractions with 1 DUI during that time as well. So I know in the past, speeding complaints have been a big thing here in the city, so our guys are out there trying to slow traffic down. So hopefully the city's seen that our guys are making presence and speed is slowing down.
Saw your trailer out quite a bit lately. That's nice.
Good. Yeah, and we try to move it around as much as we can. So if you have areas that you need it, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll take care of that.
Okay,
We were out March 7th. Obviously we had a priority call here in Benton City, so you probably saw a lot of law enforcement officers from all over the region with our SWAT team coming out. Fire department was on scene to assist, which we always appreciate that. Thankfully, everything was resolved and there was no threat to the public or to the community. So other than that, that is basically what I got. And unless you guys have questions for me.
I don't have a question, but if the mayor had begged my indulgences. We do a lot of traffic modeling and other issues like that. Is there a chance you can get feedback from your patrol guys as to where they see our problems at traffic wise?
Traffic wise, okay. And is that just the low traffic?
Low time, where they think there should be a turn lane, any kind of issues that they see?
So the one that I know that was brought to my attention now that we're talking about this is they would really like to see the center lines and fog lines painted on Babs. There on Babs and 14th. It gets extremely dark there. So when cars are coming around the corner, to stay in in their lanes. So they talked about that. I don't know if that's kind of the information you want, but they have mentioned that to me, that they'd like to see that. I know that's another cost for the city. But to make sure that the public's safe when they're driving in the evening. I came out the last time I was here in the evening, went to a call for service there, and it was pretty dark in that area. But going back to what your question is, yes, I can look into that and get you some feedback.
I'd appreciate that, because that's the one place we haven't asked. I mean, we've done some modeling, we've talked amongst ourselves, but you guys are the ones doing high speeds, middle of the night, trying to get around cars during rush hour, all those pieces.
I can definitely look into that.
We're supposed to have a staff engineer from WASDOT coming down to take a look at some of the things in the city. I'll try to let you know when they're gonna be here.
Cool.
All right. I will.
Thank
Taking up
you.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council committee meetings report.
I attended the Ben Franklin Transit Board of Directors meeting. It was fairly uneventful. In the grand scope, Queens Gate's coming online probably in June. So they're gonna be redoing our bus line and through the 170. Should be a little faster turnaround time, because they're not gonna go all the way into Richland to 9th Street. They're hoping to have that, like I said, online by about July 1. And I think that's really the major thing to tell everybody. I do believe maintenance and operation building should be, or excuse me, the new dispatch building, the operations building, should be up and operational probably May. They're furnishing it now, so.
Thank you, David.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you, Jessica.
Nothing new on the Benton County Emergency Management, continued progress on the Red Mountain repeater tower to improve service in Benton City is still underway. There is a strategic public safety planning meeting on April 1st, 8:15 to noon at the county admin building. I plan on attending and getting the feedback from that. A lot of that's going to be, future planning for public safety here in the Tri-Cities. That's about all I got.
Thank you.
Other than that, business is normal.
Jose, we're gonna get you some assignments, okay?
We got a transit job you can have.
Okay. It's honor.
I have a Coyote Irrigation District meeting tomorrow night, so I'm excited for that.
Awesome.
But I did see online that the water is supposed to be on April 1st. When we were at the last meeting, they did not have a date yet, but
Thank you.
so.
Good news. Good news. Continuing on, public hearings, we want to discuss the floodplain, the new chapter for the floodplain, chapter 15.
That
So we had, you wanted to comment on that, or?
I'd like to if you allow it.
I think we should put it under items for approval and do it after the fee schedule discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know that was cited for, set up for a public hearing.
No, it was not. It was set up for a final hearing.
Final reading, yes.
No, that was set up for a final hearing. Okay. The fee schedule, council says to just review that for tonight. If you got any questions, please feel free to ask them. We're gonna try to bring that back to the next council meeting or passage as a resolution at the next council meeting.
Okay. And then I guess we can move on. Like somebody has some discussion on the fee schedule.
Okay.
So the floodplain.
Okay.
When we
Yeah,
say,
review, if you got any questions, try to have them, try to get them answered by the next, some of those are critical. There's nothing changed in any of the thing that relates to water and sewer until we're moving along fairly rapidly on our fee schedule study. And that may very well be in place, by May 1st and have the results of that.
Okay.
That's moving very quickly. Okay.
do we have literature on that fee schedule? I'm not seeing it in the packet or,
It's in the
Yeah.
packet.
Ends on page 413.
It's way towards the end.
Like the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
Somebody's, that's a
It
lot
took-
of pages.
It took me a while to get to the internet's very
Four-
slow.
404 to 413.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Everything's redlined, so you can tell.
all the changes are red line.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. You wanted to talk about the floodplain or? Yeah,
Yep.
you're welcome to visit. Yes. You need your name and,
Address?
yeah,
Yes.
Cynthia Jackson, 1307 Babs Avenue.
okay,
I firstly want to say that any frustrations that I give out to you, I understand this is not a city specific decision, so it's not personal. I know there are things that you guys have to do and it's, on your shoulders. But I do want to point out that there are people in this zone that their property value is basically going to stick where it's at. They're not going to have the chance unless the market goes up to increase their property value. They're not going to have the chance to do things like plant trees and have a garden. There's a lot of livelihood situations incorporated into this that are basically not fair to people that own property in that zone. So I'd like for you guys to take that into consideration extremely, because a large portion of our community is affected by this. Some are affected in a negative, some are affected in a negative aspect, some are in a positive because some people are getting out of the flood zone with this. What I really would appreciate, and I've talked with other people in the zone who agree, that we'd like to see is that there be some sort of notification that we are notified by the city. There's been tons of turmoil in the city in the last 4 years. And this is a perfect opportunity to open the door to the community, trusting our city council, and how things function now, or how you aim for things to function now. And so it would be great if we could see some sort of notification and information go out to people in this zone, so we can understand completely what's going on, completely what this means to us, good or bad. This isn't something that, I'm personally affected, but I'm also looking out for my neighbors. And some of them are personally affected in a negative way, some in a positive way, as I mentioned. So it'd be great if we could have some sort of notification, have people we could contact so that we could understand it better. So we could understand how this affects us and what this means to our property value, to our livelihood, to just the plain and simple basic enjoyment of our investment in this community. Because we are investing in this community, but yet we're getting no information from our city as to how this is affecting us. So, and then maybe a reasonable grace period where people could say, okay, I've been putting off building a shop or something small, and we have a grace period to be allowed to do so, under obviously codes and regulations. That they say our property value is most likely not going to go up from this point forward. So let's get that last project in before that time hits us and affects us and makes it to where we can no longer do anything with our property. In some situations, people are so much in the flood zone that it's going to be hard to even resell their property. So they may have been here 50+ years, but at the same time, they might have wanted to leave at some point in time And they're not gonna be able to resell because who can get a loan on their property with no flood insurance? There's just so many, excuse me, there's so many factors into this and so much confusion from all sides that it would be great to have some more information, have somewhat of a small grace period, have some questions answered, and be able to move forward from that point on, have some communication doors open to where we can have faith and trust in our city and our city council again, and not feel like we can't come to you guys with our questions or concerns, because that's kind of the way it was in the past, if I'm being honest. So I'm just asking for two simple things: communication with the people affected in these zones, and maybe a reasonable grace period where we could lock in some value on our properties prior to not being able to do anything, period. Thank you.
Can you tell me where you live again?
1307 Babs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on that?
You want to make any comments, George?
Just the floodplain ordinance has been in effect with the city for how many years? Several years, and it's a state requirement. George Kress, city planner. By way of background, the municipal code under chapter 15 has an existing floodplain section, and it's been in place for several years. And it's mandated, first of all, by the Department of Ecology and FEMA, which is a federal organization. And if you don't have an ordinance in place, FEMA will not reimburse for any flood damage. And so this is a requirement both through the Growth Management Act, which is a state mandated land use planning act. And over the last year, the city has undertaken a review of that chapter 15 to update under the new requirements of both Department of Ecology and FEMA. And so that's what the city has undertaken these last 6 or 7 months. And that's what's in the new chapter 15 amendment section. It's unfortunate that properties get caught under the FEMA requirements or in this floodplain section. Again, under this, our mapping and FEMA mapping, there's basically two different classifications under the floodplain. One is a 100-year floodplain, and many properties are in this. That does not preclude you from constructing. If the property is above the high water mark and in the 100-year floodplain, you can get a survey which indicates the elevation. And if you construct a home or expand your home, you can do that. What the Department of Ecology and FEMA does not allow is building in the floodway, which is the main part of the river or the high river mark. And under flood circumstances, that's where you're going to incur most damage. And this ordinance is supposed to be for the health, safety, welfare of the city and the surrounding property owners. And if a new building or structure is out there and it creates damage or diverts the river or flood waters to the neighboring properties, it can result in severe damage to both public property as well as private property. So we try to be fair, but we also have to follow both the federal and state regulations. We've had a hearing at the Planning Commission, and I agree, more discussion, more information needs to go out. And maybe we should put this on our website so people can understand it. You're going to hear more about this because FEMA has recently mapped the river with LiDAR technology, and they have found some issues with the old mapping. So you're going to be hearing more about it. They've offered to come to town here to give discussions with the council, the planning commission and the people. So that might be another opportunity to hear from them. But I've seen property damage in the last few years where I worked with major flooding, and it's a tough issue. Because I've seen people lose their homes. And if you've got structures in the floodplain, that's what it causes.
So I guess my question would be, obviously, communication with the public would be really beneficial right now. It sounds like there's some discussions that need to take place and maybe some a little bit more knowledge, educational part of it. Is there anything that says that anything that will be sent out, can we do something in that effect that would notify the individuals that are going to be affected? Saying, hey, we're going to have a, discussion, we're going to have FEMA or whoever here talking about the topic that might affect your property. Is that something that we can look into doing?
That's a goal.
So,
Yeah, but they've offered to do it. We've got ecology involved and untold number of phone calls and emails, and Department of Ecology was one of the government institutions that did the final draft in this ordinance and changed things that we wanted in it. And that was changed at the state level. And they're waiting for us, like George had the email this week for them, wanting to know. But we can get this to them as quick as we can.
Can I say one thing? I think that communication with the community is needed. I've only had the chance to talk with a few people in the week that I've known about this, but there are several more affected. And that map that George is referring to, it shows a 1% chance. That's what it says on the map. 1% chance of flooding in those areas of the floodplain.
Right, that's their 100-year
Yeah.
definition
Yeah.
that they use.
So I just want to reiterate that that's a 1% chance. So yes, some people might lose their homes with the 100-year flood. And some people are willing to do so because they love their properties and have already been there.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate that map says 1% chance.
That's correct.
you have
And
somebody on.
and I can ask if anybody has any comment, please step up to the mics.
You have one online.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
The problem here is essentially the city didn't notify anybody. Therein lies a huge problem. Apparently this has been going on for some time, but without notifying all the people that this is affected is irresponsible. And I know most of you probably know Ken and Diane Least. If you don't, you should get to know them. They've been around here for years, and Diane can explain to you very explicitly and in no uncertain terms what's going on with this survey. And I would encourage each and every one of the council members and the mayor to meet with this woman and her husband and get her side of the story on this, because I heard this from her about 3 days ago, and I'm telling you what, her discussion with the federal government, what transpired was ugly. And the federal government was just basically, hey, tough luck. We wiped our hands of it. This is the way it is. Goodbye. So I yield back.
Mayor, may I just add a little bit something to what George said. The city's been trying to get some help, trying to put something together that was going to be as workable as we could make it. But there was a lot of pushback, and the last gentleman's comments may not be too far off from what we've seen as well. FEMA is very strongly willed in this regard, and has advised the city that the absence of an ordinance that meets their requirements may make it harder to get flood insurance. And that's something that's even different than FEMA paying on a claim. And that doesn't make it very easy, but I know that there have been a number of different, the Planning Commission has had a number of different meetings where it has tried to talk through these issues, and their public meetings, and has had public
Notice.
public notice too. So I don't want us to be unsympathetic to the plights of people who were affected, but we also, like the last gentleman said, we're in a tough position one way or the other. And I don't know that there's an easy solution anywhere.
You're right. So I'll give you my 4 cents on this, and it's gonna be a long one, so sit back. The first piece is, and I'm gonna speak to those people who spoke this evening. This has been noticed multiple times. It's been noticed in council packets. It's been noticed in planning commission packets. So there's been public notice. No, we're not going to blanket the whole lower end of Benton City with mail. There's a cost associated to that. We gave the public notice needed. Now, to the other points. If I was a landowner on the shores of Benton City, I would be pissed off. Flat out. Because this new proposal takes multiple people along the shoreline and says you can't build. Period. And then it extends down into the middle of town. At what point are we going to start telling everybody how to live on their property to the extent that they can't even put up a doghouse if they live up on 7th and Carroll? Because that was underwater in the 100-year flood that FEMA is referencing. So I get their plight. I, after having some discussions on this, I will not vote in favor of the second reading tonight. And I'm sorry that FEMA's got their panties in a bunch, but we've got to take into consideration what everybody's got going on. Okay. If I purchased a piece of property down by the river, that's what I would want, is my ability to build on it. I want to put up a doghouse, let me put up a doghouse. To some other points that I have concern about. Our shoreline management plan says that they can build. But now we're enacting a municipal code that says they can't. Which one's right? Are we going to bring that into adjustment? Do you got plans to modify the shoreline management plan?
That's probably next.
Okay, well, all those things I think need to play at the same time. Do you not think? If we're going to wait a year for shoreline management, that's going to cause confusion to people who are looking to build.
So my understanding on that at this point, and I got to make sure this is explained correctly. FEMA has ultimate control over shoreline, over the waterway and the shoreline of the river, not shoreline management. My understanding is now that FEMA is working on this, shoreline management is going to adopt what FEMA tells them to adopt. So us and shoreline management are kind of in the same spot. We're waiting for the FEMA aspect of it.
We have our own shoreline management plan.
Correct.
And that is not in compliance with this idea. So how does that play for somebody? The other thing is we've had people building down there in the last 10 years. At what point is that we going to be in a lawsuit? Because we didn't, and I hate to say this, but we haven't told people face to face, hey, you got a year. If you want to build a doghouse, build your doghouse. If not, this is coming down. I just pointing out my opinion on this, and my fellow council members, I mean, you may disagree with that, but I think we need to give it a little more thought before we approve it. And my take on it is it should be tabled for at least a month.
Has the new plan been publicized for community members to see? What FEMA's proposing?
other than in the packets, not that I'm aware of.
See, I think that's an issue too.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor, can I address the council?
We have,
David, I appreciate your comments but you have to understand 99% of the people do not attend the council meetings. They don't attend planning commission meetings. And this this is blindsiding everybody. I appreciate your thoughts about sending out the notices to everybody in Benton City. But if you're worried about that, then quit sending me 3 bills for 2 properties and my water and sewer. So I'm just saying, there needs to be better notification from the city to the people that this is affecting. That's all I'm saying about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
how was, Dan, how's ecology gonna react if we postpone this?
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked with anybody at Ecology about
You know,
the timetable. I know that they have been pushing for a long time and with an expression of concern about how this will affect flood insurance within the city if we do not have something in place. And we have really, no, I don't want to say stalled, because we really tried to push hard to make sure that what was put together was as compatible with what the city could do as it could be, against a flow of bureaucratic folks upstairs with the state and the federal folks pushing hard the other way. And I don't know what they would do if the city were to hold off on doing this. We're already late, but how late is late enough for them to react in some way that affects flood insurance? I don't know.
Well, I'm okay with being late as long as I'm doing the right thing and I sleep well at night.
Well, I only mentioned the flood insurance because that was brought up a number of times by FEMA.
So the interesting thing is, with this plan going into effect, more people will have to be at flood insurance because they're in the floodplain now, right?
Well, the concern the concern that I heard that causes me concern is if we do not have a flood plain ordinance that meets certain criteria, it will, it could affect the ability to get flood insurance, and that's a concern.
And my statement is still valid. We have about 10 residences from here down to the railroad bridge that are in the floodplain currently, that are in the on the edge of it, right? The only flood that got as high as it did was 96, which is what they're basing all of this on. Okay, I think I can wait a month. And I think the citizens can too. And I'll take that risk as a bet.
I'm not betting, I'm not in a position to bet one way or the other. I'm just bringing what I understand to be the case to your attention.
But that's my opinion. So take it for what you want.
I'm gonna go out on a limb.
we have,
Oh,
usual.
oh. I could be done by the time he gets up there.
JB said that we could put this in a newsletter. And then there's no extra cost as to if there's any meetings or whatnot scheduled. So. I can help you to help get that out to the community at no extra cost.
And I was gonna concur with David in the fact that I'm willing to put this on hold and risk being late by their FEMA standards. And I have skin in the game. My house was not in the floodplain, and now all of a sudden it will be. And all the pasture behind me, and so this was, if you were here a couple weeks ago when we had this meeting and discussed it, I was quite taken aback at the differences it's gonna make. Because we have people that economically, if they have to start paying for flood insurance, it may not be so affordable for them to stay where they're at. And then if they can't sell their property because no one else can get flood insurance or can afford it, we all know what the economy's like right now. We know what interest rates are. We know what the housing market's like.
There's even people that are not in the floodplain anymore that did flood in 96, but now all of a sudden they're not in the floodplain.
And my house didn't flood in 96.
If you look at their LIDAR proposal, there's nothing that was in the old floodplain that's excluded from the new one.
Dan houses, his feet was 3 feet
Yeah.
underwater and now it's not in the floodplain
Which is,
off of Alma.
All that was underwater down there.
And now it's no longer in the floodplain.
right.
Okay.
But
Council, my house on 206 Alma was under 3 foot of water in 96. Now the map says I'm out. And when Diane talked with the FEMA guy that came down there that did the survey, this was all projected software engineering. There was no hard data. Diane tried to explain to him, this is where the water was. The guy refused to listen. He said, tough luck, goodbye, here it is, live with it. So sometimes, I'm just saying, folks, sometimes we need to tell the federal government to go take a hike.
The best we can.
Well, before this draws out much longer, I motion the table for a month.
I'll second.
all in favor,
Sandra, I.
Wadsworth, aye.
Reed, aye.
Valencia.
Alcazar, I.
motion passes.
Thank you.
We have the splash pad discussion.
As of last council meeting, we had council had chosen to move forward with applying for an RCO grant for the splash pad development at Riverfront, not at Riverfront, at Blacktop Park. So meeting with our grant writer, I'll share my screen here. 1 second.
So is this grant specific to a specific park?
Blacktop Estates is
Yeah.
where the previous application was submitted
Is
for.
that what we did again?
We haven't submitted anything yet.
Okay.
So, but that was my intent, was because that's where it was previously. That's kind of where the plan was.
I
That's
think
where
council
we're
needs to
looking
have
at
some
moving
discussion
forward.
on that particular item. So.
That sounds great. I can show you some numbers. That's what I'd like to do today and kind of give you an idea what we're looking at and what our options are for this grant. And if we choose a different location, I don't know how much it'll change the price, but just for your evaluation.
I'm sure it'll be more expensive. As long as the tax is included would be good.
Tax is always included.
That's not true.
Now my computer's acting slow. Apologize.
You get paid by the hour, bro?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I gotta give you a little guff there, Nate.
Well, the
No
silence
problem.
needs
No
to
problem.
be filled.
All right, so you guys see that already? There we are. So application that was submitted back in 2020 was for development of Blacktop Estates Park with the splash pad. And looking at the numbers that were budgeted at that time, you'll see option 1 full scope here, includes that project, splash pad and full development. Some of the things we are moving forward with out of city funds, you'll see the items in blue, the fencing, landscaping improvements, site prep, portion of the site prep and a portion of architectural engineering are already in progress. So removing those items from the total estimated costs is a cost of $659,000 for development of that park. That was 4 years ago. So if we estimate an 8% inflation per year, an additional 163,000, we're looking at a total cost for full development at 823,000 for splash pad at Blacktop Estates. That includes, let me bring up the plan that was developed at that time as well. Just change my share here 1 second. So this is the plan that was developed at that time in 2020. So it includes a parking lot, couple picnic shelters, a 10-element splash pad, restroom facility, and then grass seeding development of the park. Again, the grass, irrigation system, fencing, grading, all of that's already in progress. So those costs have been removed, but looking at if we were to apply to develop Blacktop Estates for a splash pad, our cost would be around 823,000 is what we're looking at. Let me go back to the budget form. That application, the application for that is a max of 500,000 that we can request. So if we move forward with the splash pad and the full development, the city would have to come up with a 30% share, which is approximately 250,000 plus an additional 76,000 out of pocket that exceeds the 500,000 that can be applied for. Another option is to scale this down a little. Removing the picnic shelters, reducing the signs and kiosks, and reducing the actual splash park development. That was for a 10 feature park, reducing it to a lower scope. We can get down estimated costs at 479,000. That's also in reducing our architectural and engineering. So we would rely more on city staff to assist with some of the work that they can. But that would bring the cost down to 479 to do that scope of work. Still have to add that inflation in there because those numbers were 4 years old. But that brings the city's responsibility from 250 down to 200 and our application amount right at 456. I would recommend we request the full amount of the 500, but those are two options for the splash pad. Again, that's at Blacktop Estates. If another park were chosen, I'd have to relook at numbers and see what we can do. Obviously, if we chose a park where there's adequate parking, the parking lot was a significant cost. That's something that could be looked at, saving some money. But your biggest cost is the actual splash park facility, from $250,000 to $350,000, depending on what type of amenities are installed there. So those are the options for this park if council chooses to proceed with that. I did want to bring another option. I like to just bring options to you guys. Another option is to hold off on the splash park and look at developing Riverfront Park instead. There is another grant that could be applied for. It's the aquatic lands grant. It's just for properties next to river development. And with that, let me bring that budget up. We can be right at 500,000, which would I have to stop again 1 second. So this is a very basic budget, but looking at Riverfront Park, we're estimating that we could do a full development of that park for the $500,000. There would still be the 30% city share that's required, city match. So that would be 150,000 that the city would have to contribute for that development, but it is less than 250 200 to 250 to move forward with the splash park. I understand that splash parks are priority. I've heard that from council. I've heard that from the city.
Well, ask the audience. What do they want, a splash park or do they want the riverfront park done?
Where's the riverfront park going?
The railroad bridge?
Part of a project to purchase the railroad bridge, which we're in negotiations for, and then develop the land next to the bridge to put in some fishing areas, parking, an event area with a gazebo. Small area developed with grass. Most of it would still remain as natural terrain.
Aren't we doing something similar with the Fish and Wildlife property off of 14? So we're gonna have two?
We aren't doing anything down there yet.
I'd say the park if it was me.
Would there be room at the park for the splash pad?
At Riverfront Park,
Yeah.
for future development, we would have to build the infrastructure for it. Room, yes, it's a big space. There's a lot of land there. But we would have to make sure that we're bringing in adequate sized water and sewer lines and all of that.
So
for
we've
that.
talked about putting in restrooms there and then the picnic shelter, and then that would, if we put the splash pad there, then those items would be dual purpose.
One item to consider there is bringing back the floodplain, Riverfront Park, the floodplain significantly increased there. The development we're doing, the restroom is still out of the floodplain, but we'd have to really evaluate adequate space to put the splash pad in.
The grant would restrict us
Yeah,
having it in the floodplain.
yeah, and you've got the railroad berm, and then you've got a good significant slope down, and there's not a lot of land there in between that slope and where the floodplain hits, so there would have to be some manipulation there to put the splash pad there. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's not something that we've looked at. So
Just,
just off the top of my head, though, those are the challenges we would face there. I can say that infrastructure was built at Blacktop to serve a splash pad there at site. So the water lines are sized correctly. There's a sewer line there. Everything is kind of was put in when Blacktop was developed to put a splash park there. I don't know about infrastructure at any other parks.
So let's talk about this. So when that originally happened up there, they had a street running straight out to Horn Road. Okay, that went away.
Mhm.
So, and if you wanted to live up in that particular area, you would have cars from all over town driving on in and trying to fit in that parking spot. They're not gonna all fit in the parking spot. They're probably not all gonna fit on the street in front of the park. So that's been my concern since this re-change of removing that street. I brought it up then, let's bring it up now.
Those are very valid points. I would agree.
I think it's a traffic people issue. We originally, the very first time that I was part of this discussion, we talked about Legion Park. On the east side of that water tower.
Mhm.
The folks that live up there have concerns already that there's not adequate or functional parking for the park.
Mhm.
And that's a fairly small space as well.
Yes.
So I just bring it up as food for thought to the council that I want to move forward with this, but I want it to be in a functional space, right? The citizens, the kids, everybody's talked about. I think the surveys even show it, that the splash park is like 1 or 2 on the list. There has to be something functional for the kids during the summer, but we also have to make it functional so people can get to it, right?
Mhm.
Yes, Ms. Jackson.
I'm just thinking if we are developing the Fish and Wildlife plan off of 14th or this.
Not our property, we cannot put.
Can't go there.
And is not owned by the city. The land's owned by Fish and Wildlife. We have a lease with them. So,
Understood, thank you.
yeah.
Wanna come up?
I'm Steve Rouse, I live away from city limits. So why am I talking? Anyway, my daughter lives underneath the water tower. She can hit it, throw a rock left-handed and hit the water tower. And she has some big issues. And I mean, I realize everybody has issues, but nonetheless, she's really concerned about those blue outhouses that are in front, they're directly in front of her picture window. Not what she wants to look at necessarily. But my question is, if we're contemplating putting money into this park, that park, and or developing whatever, I haven't heard us talk about anything that wasn't underwater in 96. So I'm wondering why, are we drowning the horse and then we're gonna bury him when the water goes away? What, I can't understand what we're doing. We're getting the cart way in front of the horse.
So he brings up a valid point with the railroad bridge area. Obviously, that's flood zone, which you brought up.
Yes.
I don't think the park down here was in the flood. I can't remember.
Regarding the mountain,
Yeah,
I would say that one's in the same situation as Blacktop. You're in the middle of the neighborhood. There's not much parking there. I'm
yeah.
not saying it's not the place to go, but if you're evaluating the two side by side, they're pretty much the same.
Do we have sufficient water to Mountain View and sufficient sewer line?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't know if Alan, if you know.
We have sewer there, we probably have to increase the water to 4-inch.
But I don't know if there's even room for additional parking. It would be only street side.
Gonna say, I think we're just up against, in just about every park that we're gonna consider,
Mhm.
we're gonna be up against parking situations just because we don't have enough land in one spot to be able to put a feasible parking plus a water splash pad. I would hate for us not to be able to do something because this is something that's been talked about for 8 years or whatever it's been, and I get the concerns about the parking, but I also know, at least up here in this neighborhood, most of them are younger families that have children that will probably walk down to that park. I know we'll get some people traveling in, just like they do in some of the other splash pads in the other communities, but I think if we can figure out a way to make it work, I really don't want us to go backwards and yank this splash pad opportunity out. Just because I think it's something that's been talked about previous councils and now in front of us. And obviously you've worked extremely hard on getting some grant processes put in place to help us out. So that's my, I guess, 2 cents on that is, I mean, we won't know unless we try. And there's always going to be growing pains with anything that's new and changing within our community. And
Other input, council members?
Nope.
I think everything's been addressed. My concern is parking too. I mean, are we building a splash pad up there for just that neighborhood? And then no one else can really go because there's.
I don't think
parking
it's going to
restrictions.
restrict people. I think it's just going to be trying to come up with some solutions in that area about parking,
Mhm.
Well, there's the traffic flow in and out of there too. I mean, we've heard it from the folks on Kendall Road with speeding cars. Now you got a bunch of people going in and out of the residential area to go to the splash pad. And I'm speaking both sides here. I want the splash pad. I'm okay with it there. But I see these problems. And I think we need to address that, or at least come up with a plan on how to.
No, they should be addressed, building and then not taking into consideration any issues that might come up from that construction is not beneficial to anyone.
I'm guesstimating based on the size of the drawing and the placement of the ADA pads here that we're looking like that this parking lot would fit about 20 vehicles.
Nathan, George had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on, George.
I'm sorry. You're discussing a very valid issue about parking and people. I've seen in other places where I've worked where there's public transit, especially if you want to run a shuttle bus for kids in the morning or in the afternoon. That might be one way of moving young people around during the summer months. I only suggest that. I've seen that in other places where I've worked. It has worked. It's just a matter of people getting used to it. And especially if it's free for kids that can use the transportation.
Well, currently Ben Franklin Transit has a youth ride free program, so everybody under 18 is a free ride anyway. And there are plans when the 170 changes to take the big bus out of town here and go to a small commuter inside the city. I'll have to talk to them and see if we can maybe utilize that if that splash pad comes to fruition. Make it part of the route.
I think we have a summer youth program, and that might be a good viable way to utilize that.
Fair enough. So I think the consensus so far is just go ahead with it where it's at, but
Okay.
just think about those issues.
Okay. Thank you for bringing them up, and we will consider, what solutions. There's a lot of open green future dogs park space here. Maybe that's future parking lot as well. I don't know, but definitely something you can look at. Does council have a recommendation on which option to move forward with? There was two budgets. I provided a full budget and the scaled down version, for lack of a better word. Bring it back up here just one more time for you guys to look at that.
Did we have any money set aside? I know at one time there was discussion with previous council that the money was, you guys had set money aside.
Oh, there was, it's disappeared in the budget someplace.
Perfect.
I think we may have a line item for, I think we put it back in at 50,000. But that's going on my memory and it's not so good anymore. So I'm done. I'm a conservative guy, but I'm done with the splash pad and this, let's try to eke out what we can. Just put in a good facility.
Mhm.
Go with the big dollar,
Okay. All right.
but I want tax.
Yes, sir. We'll have that.
I agree. I think we might as well just get this over and done with. It's something that's been promised for a very long time. And I think this is a good opportunity to see how the community comes out and interacts in a facility like this. And maybe this will encourage us to move forward with some other projects with the community behind us.
Agree?
Yeah,
All right.
look good at it.
Okay, we'll move forward with the Cadillac.
Bye-bye Honda.
I don't know, you can buy a Cadillac for that price these
Go
days.
big or go home.
All right, thank you guys for your input.
No, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much.
I do want to just say that one of the reasons that I had suggested, but that I brought up the riverfront park, which is because, you could have adults down there fishing and you could have the kids, for families.
Yes.
Is what I was thinking of. Just saying that was a big part of it. So there's something for everybody, everyone in the family down there.
It's
Let's
definitely
think
an option. I think unfortunately the floodplain limits what we can do there. That restroom, we had to move up in the kind of the corner of the property
Yeah.
to get out of the floodplain, and you don't have, because you've got that railroad berm and it's steep
Mhm.
slope, you don't have much land in between the bottom level and where the floodplain is now coming up. So,
Well, who
but we
knows?
will look at it. I
Maybe
mean,
we could do a smaller splash pad there someday.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm all for it. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any new business? Okay. We would like to adjourn our regular council session and come back to executive session at 25 after the hour and figure no more than 15 minutes, for the executive session.
Business or anything to follow?
I don't think there's gonna be any action taken tonight.
No action taken.
And then, okay, did we give an estimate as to how long you wanted?
15, no more than 15 minutes.
Okay, we'll say 15 minutes.
9:25, 15 minutes, no action to follow.
Okay. Thank you.
9:25.
Well, it's very warm in here. It was like this last time too.
I took the sweater off,
Well, I did earlier, but
but
I'm
I'm chilly now.
getting ready to leave.
Going back to order, that city council meeting, regular council meeting, March 19th, 2024. Any other items?
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everybody who's participating. Civic responsibility is every person's job, and I appreciate everybody who stepped up and is participating. On that note, I also like to thank those that are paid staff for their diligence. And I motion to adjourn.
Second.
One point, Mayor. One point, if I may?
Yes.
I would like to encourage each and every council member to take the time to connect with Diane Least. And you're gonna get an earful from her on this flood stuff. So beware. But anybody, you guys can pass my email around, pass my phone number around. Bill has it, Dave has it. I don't know if the mayor does, but pass my number around. I will get you in contact with her, but I'm telling you folks, you need to talk with this woman and get a better understanding of what happened with this phony government intrusion. So that's all I'm asking. So have a good night. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On that note, again, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
Great guy.
Alcazar, aye.
Motion passes. Benton City Council meeting, March 19th.
Thank you.